Hello, BookTube. Recently, this channel reached a milestone. It does that sometimes with subscriber numbers, but this milestone was different. Other BookTube channels, other YouTube channels, have hit subscriber milestones. But this channel recently passed 5,000 videos, and passed that by a significant number. I didn't get on the ball on this thing until it was well past 5,000. So the little videos, the ones calling for questions on a Q&A, or a few seconds of a video to show you Frida or something like that, those have also been accounted for. Even accounting for those, we are now so far past 5,000 videos that there are 5,000 substantial videos on this channel. That is mind-boggling. I am 100% sure that no other booktuber has ever done that, and I'm not 100% sure that no other YouTuber has done that, especially if they don't have a team and a studio and Patreon or sponsor money behind them. They're just setting up a camera and talking to you directly. I really doubt that anyone's done that. If you know of an example, I'd love to hear about it. But even though it's a unique milestone for the platform, I didn't come up with any unique way to celebrate it. I just called for questions for Q&A, because I love them and you seem to love them too, and you never run out of questions. So I put out a call for questions for 5K Q&A, but not our first 5K, where we hit 5,000 subscribers, but this 5K, where we hit 5,000 videos. And I got questions. So we're just going to go through them now, and with the usual caveats. I don't think there are as many as usual. They haven't been up for long. The call for questions has not been up for long. So I'm hoping that I can get this done in just a couple of videos, but I'm going to stop every video at 30 minutes so that these just don't go on forever or take forever to upload. So we'll start with NP Hunt. I've got the trusty iPad here. You've mentioned quite a few times that nonfiction books about dogs usually infuriate you when they try to go into psychology, etc. Yes. Aside from your recent suggestions of Alfred Oliphant's books, well, okay. I wasn't suggesting Oliphant's books. I was suggesting that Bob's Son of Battle be a Penguin classic. I wasn't suggesting that it was a good example of insight into the dog mentality, and I wasn't suggesting that you read it. I was just suggesting that it should maybe be included in the Penguin classics. Are there any other fiction books with dogs as characters that you enjoy? For example, what did you think of Damien Dibbins' Tomorrow, James Herbert's Fluke, Olaf Stapleton's Sirius? You could also mention Watchers by Dean R. Koontz and a whole bunch of others. And Knopp's Trials, and if you remember Knopp's Trials, they're all terrible. In all of them, the dog is a human. Basically, in all of them, the dog is a human. So they might not be terrible as entertainment to read. They might not be terrible as novels. But boy, oh boy, has reading these kinds of books over the decades really clued me into the fact that despite the fact that dogs have evolved with humans in a more symbiotic relationship than humans have with anything other than like bacteria in their gut, humans, most of them, really don't understand dogs. Dogs understand humans very well. They read body language, human body language, better than humans do. But I guess it underscores what I've known all along from knowing and meeting and talking to millions and millions of dog owners, which is that most of them don't understand their dogs at all. The dog is basically a resident alien who, fortunately, is under your control. You have power over this alien, so you don't have to work all that hard to understand them, and they are built in wanting to please you. So there aren't many incentives to building a true bridge of understanding, and boy, the books really show that. Elena Macrodina, fellow booktuber. I love those requests for recommendations. I wish you talked about In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust during your previous Q&A. What do you think about it? Who are your favorite French authors? Well, when it comes to In Search of Lost Time, the reason that I haven't dwelt on it on my channel is because we're, of course, doing a massive read-along of In Search of Lost Time. That would be Proust-Gus. It was coming right up, so of course I can't talk about it. But my favorite French authors, I should say Balzac. When he's good, he's really good. I should also say Stendhal, but it's Jules Verne. Jules Verne is my favorite French author. Let's see here. Nick Piccarilli says, thank you for recommending Fox and I. It was one of my favorite of the year so far. Isn't it a lovely book? What are your views on anthropomorphizing? Have you ever been accused of it with your dogs? Well, yes. I'm wondering if you're asking about anthropomorphizing because of Fox and I. Do you suspect the author of that? The author, I thought, in that book made it very clear when she was doing that, and that she was doing it merely as a flight of fancy. She wasn't stating it as fact in the book. I think that my impression is that virtually no anthropomorphizing got done in that book. I have been accused of it many times with my dogs until the accusers see my dogs and I together in an intimate setting, when it's obvious that I'm not imposing anything that isn't already there. I'd like to think that's true anyway. But let's see here. Orphead NZ says, I have enjoyed them too. Thank you so much, Steve. Does that mean enjoyed Q&As? Is that what it refers to? What would you consider must-sees when you visit London, England? Not necessarily the tourist traps. We are planning a trip in April and May. We know we won't have time or funds for a leisurely trip. Well, if you don't have any time at all, if you have, only a few days, then if you've only got a few days and you don't think there's a chance that you're going back anytime soon for a longer stay, then maybe do a couple of touristy things, maybe Buckingham Palace, maybe the Tower of London, that sort of thing. There's no harm in it. I always advise people, if you have a stretch of time, then dispense with all tourist stuff and just get to know the area. Just find something, a place, an activity, and do that until you really feel the place seep into you. But if you don't have any time at all, if you're on one of those package tours, Rome, Florence, Venice, and 2 days each, with personal time in between, there's not much you can do there. There really isn't. So I don't know. No must-sees at all. No, just if you've only got a few days, make the best of it. There's no way that you can get to know a city like London in just a few days. So you might as well see the sights. Isaiah Armstrong says, I already asked a few questions, but I'm going to ask another one. Oh, they must be further down on the list here. I copied these over to a document, so they might be out of order. Will you be doing Steve streams again now that construction is mostly done? Yes. Yes, I will be. I miss Steve streams as much as other people do, the poor, demented people who like Steve streams. I miss doing them. It's just that we have a weird kind of relay race here. The construction ended, and a day later, a heat wave hit Boston that shows no signs of ending. The temperatures are going to be in the low 90s Fahrenheit all of next week. They're going to reach 100 degrees Fahrenheit, probably later today and definitely tomorrow. With no wind, no clouds, no precipitation of any kind. And that gets a little inhospitable for a Steve stream. Maybe I can do one anyway and see. It seems to be... I worry about, for instance, I've got the AC unit on in the window right here, and I've been worried for the last few days it's been too hot to make videos if I don't have that AC unit on. Not for me, but for Frida, who's right here. She doesn't like to be away from me. I can't have her in another room. So she has to be here, which means I have to have the AC unit on or she'll just start panting. And I've worried the last few days where that's been true, that the AC unit would be obtrusively audible. And no one has commented on it. In fact, people have emailed me and said, if it's noticeable at all, it's only because you drew my attention to it. So maybe a Steve stream is possible. I'll give it a try, if so. I'll give it a try tomorrow, if that's so. Scott Pearson. I have enjoyed Nevada Bars and a Pigeon mystery novels. I especially like the way the character ages through the series. Yes, a comparative rarity. Do you think this series is any good? It depends. Well, it's not stellar writing, and it's not particularly good character development. I mean, it's dependably enjoyable. Nevada Bar is dependably enjoyable. I could name you probably 10 authors of ongoing mystery series for whom that is true. They are dependably enjoyable. The only reason that I sound a little hesitant is because when you dip your toe into mystery novels that are genuinely good, genuinely, bracingly good, maybe you come back a little more reluctantly to series that are endless and that are dependably good, but never more than that. Maybe you do, or maybe not. Maybe that's just what you need. Certainly that's what I get out of Donna Leon, the Brunetti mysteries. I'd be the first person to admit they're not profound. They're just dependably enjoyable. So maybe that's the most that I could do there. Ineffable 6950X. Steve, congratulations on one more step towards YouTube domination. Well, it's a YouTube record. At least for BookTube, it's a record. I might not get invited to ask banal prescripted questions to Michelle Obama, but no one else under the umbrella of BookTube has made this many videos. I don't know. That's a far cry from Domination, though. Number one, I've really gotten into crime thrillers lately. What do you think of The Far Empty by J. Todd Scott? I haven't read it. And The Cartel by Dawn Winslow. I loved it. Just loved it. Number two, what do you make of the rise of so-called cozy fantasy in the last few years? Books like Legends and Lattes, House on the Cerulean Sea. I enjoy them, but I feel like they are fantasy versions of beach books. Oh, okay, you're being nice. There are plenty of beach books that aren't like that. What you mean is they're shallow, they're vapid, and you're right, they are. I have no objection to them, especially not if readers flock to them who really need that at the moment. What I object to is the same thing I've objected to for the last 150,000 years, which is people flocking to those things, enjoying them, and then denying the fact that they're shallow. Saying, well, since I spend my time reading this stuff, in order to validate me, I need to say that this has more meat on the bone than it really does. Like, for instance, before J.K. Rowling became Voldemorted, before she became She Who Must Not Be Named, before she became the worst person who's ever lived. The blue check marks on Twitter say that she is actually objectively worse than Hitler. But before that, they all loved her, and she taught them all how to read. And when they were being self-righteous and dictatorially fascist about her back then, as opposed to now, they said not that she should be banned, she personally should be burned in public, and you are a bad person if you have her books in your possession. Back then, they said, well, since we like these things, they can't be shallow. We insist that they be taught in schools. Graduate-level seminars on the semiotics of Harry Potter. I object to that when it comes to things like House on the Cerulean Sea, especially. I object to that. Perfectly fine for you to like it. I don't have any problem with that at all. In fact, I want to hear about that. But not fine for you to be of the segment of the reading public that because it likes something, says that something must be genuinely profound, deep, multi-layered, because otherwise you'd have to be criticizing me. It's not a criticism. But you liking something doesn't make it profound. You disliking something doesn't make it a Nazi. It's just so that might be an overdone answer to your question, but I enjoy them too. Is my short form of my answer. Omnipotent Poobah says, "Hi Steve, I know you're on tenterhooks waiting for the Booker long list to come out next week." I'm not on tenterhooks for any book group, but the Booker. No, I know what will happen. There's only you only have to look at the Penn Faulkner long list, the most recent Penn Faulkner long list, to know that book award ceremonies are entirely political. They are entirely political virtue signaling. They don't have anything to do with the books. They are solely concerned with the biography of the author, the skin color of the author, the bed partner of the author. That's all they're interested in. So if you're interested in that, you will be waiting on tenterhooks for the Booker long list. But if you're not, if you're interested in books, for instance, there's no reason even to pay attention to it. No reason even to glance past the headline. That's all it will be. It will be 100% that. And whoever ticks the most boxes of those non-literary concerns will win the Booker Prize. So why would I... But anyway, you made it as a joke anyway. Oh, you have questions, though. One, what do you or indeed other book reviewers do with advanced reading copies and uncorrected proofs, etc., once you're done with them? I know they're technically not for resale, so always wondered how they make it to private collections, etc., at least the sought-after ones. Well, I can't speak for my fellow book reviewers. First of all, the poor little daffodils can maybe speak for themselves if they weren't afraid to be on camera, or they get tired in the middle of a video. So-and-so is so tired. Right there in your Twitter bio, so I know you're exhausted all the time with reading on your couch. But the key word here is technically. They're technically not for resale, but I don't know of a reviewer who doesn't get rid of them. You could not do that. It would be up to eyeballs, and most libraries won't take them. I donate plenty of mine. I also give plenty of mine away to you, to viewers of this channel. But I don't know of a book reviewer who doesn't occasionally sell a bag of review copies. And I don't see the reason why that is so heavily policed. I guess on one level I could understand certain kind of human being who goes to a publisher, gets a job at a publisher, and says, well, the original recipient didn't pay for this, so if they resell it, they're making money off our product. The original recipient almost certainly boosted the sales of that product by 150%. So, but that's typically what other reviewers do. They just make a bag up and bring them, if you've got a place nearby that will buy them, or take them in trade. Number 2, can I just say I really enjoyed the various sabermetrics videos with the Brattle chap. The Brattle chap is Zach from the Brattle. Do you have any plans to do any more of those? Oh, Zach and I just filmed a discussion today. It wasn't on baseball. I've been amazed at how many emails I've got from people saying they'd like us to continue talking about baseball. And a lot of you have said, a lot of those comments have struck the same note by saying, I'm not all that interested in baseball, but it's so interesting to hear two old friends just talking the hell out of a subject like this. I've had a few of you say over the month since we last talked that it could be any subject. You just like the interplay. Zach usually picks the subjects, not me, so it could come up again. Fit to Dissent says, hey Steve, a few questions. How are you liking the reading experience on the new Kindle Fire you recently got? I haven't done any reading on the new Kindle Fire I recently got. One of you sent me a smaller Kindle Fire, a 6-inch Kindle Fire, not the larger tablet size. And I haven't done any reading yet on it because, A, I've been distracted by the heat, and I've been distracted by the heat from sitting down and actually Frankensteining that Kindle Fire. Right now, it's just a store-bought Kindle Fire. So it has 1 million miles of Amazon bloatware on it and Amazon restrictions in its app store. And I don't want that. It's the Kindle Fire is an Android tablet with an Amazon skin on it. And there are 1 million ways to take that skin off the device. When you're done with those multiple steps and you clear out all of the junk, you're left with an Android tablet. You can download the Google Play Store. I can have my Barnes & Noble Nook app, my Kobo app, my iBooks app. I can have the Amazon app on there. I can have I can have the whole Google suite. So I can have Google Docs and the Google search function and YouTube and whatnot. Right now, that I very much appreciate the kindness of the gesture, but right now that Amazon Fire is useless to me. I mean, it has uses, but I need 20 minutes. If I were tech proficient, I'd need 10. I need 20 minutes to patiently Frankenstein it. Root it just a little in order to get it to be functional as an Android tablet. Then I'm sure it will work fine. It's got 25 gigs of storage on it. That's a huge amount for my use. But no, I haven't read anything on it yet. Let's see. Are the Black Spine Penguin Classics worth getting in physical form over digital? I don't think anything's worth getting in physical form over digital, as long as you're storing your digital stuff securely. Okay, so when you get a digital file, you want to make sure that you are storing it separate from the file where you download it. Most of you use the app Calibre for that. I have not been able to get Calibre to work for me, but it works for thousands of people, and then the book file is on Calibre as well, as on whatever your device is. You want to be sure that you're not going to lose your books, your ebooks. And the only reason I'm stressing that is because I recently did. The Nook app on this very iPad simply refused to open one day. Would not give me a workaround, would not send me any kind of help, would not, no kind of flag on my Amazon account on my laptop, just nothing. Just wouldn't open. Meaning that the only way I was ever going to use it again on this tablet, as opposed to just sitting there mocking me, would have been to delete the app and re-download it. Which means I lose all the side-loaded content that was on it, 2,500 ebooks. And eventually had to do that. But the key is, I only lost about 1,000 of those. The rest, the other 1,500, I had by then started taking the precaution of saving those files onto my laptop. So they are still there and I can sideload them at my leisure. But you have more questions, yes? What are your thoughts on John Meacham as a history writer? He's pretty good. Do you think Joe Manchin is a secret Republican mole? Those of you not particularly following American politics, Joe Manchin is the person on Capitol Hill. He's the person in Congress who has stopped President Biden from doing anything, single-handedly. And I don't think he's a secret Republican mole. I think he's a very open Republican. I don't care what he calls himself. I don't care how he caucuses. He's clearly a Republican. He hates human beings on Earth. He doesn't think human beings belong on Earth. And he only spends money to benefit his corporate donors. That is the modern breed of fascist Republican. That's not Democrat in any way. He's not. So I don't care what he calls himself. I'm not interested in his pronouns. If it walks and quacks and denies health care like a Republican, then it's a Republican. And finally, I swear I read faster on my Kindle compared to physical form, so I'm curious to know if you've heard the same experience mentioned from others. I have many times, yeah. Many times people told me that e-reading drastically increases the speed of their reading for a number of different reasons. First of all, there's less falderall than with a book. A printed book has a bit of mechanics involved, and that creates a drug on the system. That just does. You might not notice it if you've been doing it your whole life, but it does create a slight impediment. Not only that, but also a lot of people who've mentioned to me that their reading goes up when they e-read are reading on a dedicated e-reading device. They're reading on their Kindle Paperwhite. And that necessarily cuts out distractions of any kind. I've had many, many people tell me it's a blessing. And that's great to hear. I love hearing that. How are we doing for time? We're fine. Hieronymus of Stridon. When did you learn Latin? What do you think about the demise of Latin being taught not only in public schools, but even in some private schools? Congratulations on that astronomical number of videos. I don't think it's a good idea to remove Latin even as an elective in private schools. And I've seen it mostly eliminated as electives in private schools. I learned it in school. And it helps you a lot. It really does. Not just with Latin. The rationale used to be, until the 21st century, the rationale for removing it from curriculum was that it's a dead language. It's dead books. Why would you need to do this at all? That was the rationale for stripping it before. The people who went to school board meetings would say that this shouldn't be here for that reason. In the 21st century, of course, it's white supremacy. One way or the other, whatever your reason is, it helps a lot for you to learn the workings of language, and also helps you with all the Romance languages that you'll learn after it. I think it's a shame that it's not taught in schools anymore. EV says, "Hello, Steve. Thank you for your videos." Well, the pleasure's all mine. Number one, do you think the hobby of book reading has inherently more to offer than one of television watching? Absolutely it does. It absolutely does. The habit of television watching is a lot of fun. It's very enjoyable. It's completely passive. And no matter what you've heard some people say, including, unfortunately, some of my fellow booktubers, reading is not completely passive. It is not completely passive. Obviously. If I thought if it was completely passive, then I would split my time between it and video games, and I don't. You're watching a movie, you have no choice in the matter at all about anything involved. With a book, that's not true. And people who say that you don't have any choice, the words are frozen right there on the page, I have to wonder what kind of reading they're doing. But anyway, number two, lots of very well-read booktubers seem to like or at least respect Sally Rooney's work. No, they don't. They seem it. Yes, you're right. I know not seems, but they seem it. I don't think they do. I think they seem it. They know a bandwagon when they see one. This is someone who's safe to venerate. What's your best guess as to what they see in it? They don't see anything in it. Or at most, they see themselves. Just Gen Z anomie. Finally, someone has captured the essence of my not giving a crap about mostly anything except my own Instagram feed. Finally, someone has captured that. Is that worth capturing? No. But finally, someone's captured Gen Z anomie. So I might as well love it. I guess, or whatever. And number three, what do you think of RF Kangs' trilogy? If you didn't like them, is her new book, Babel, any better? I haven't read the new one because I did not like the trilogy. I just thought it was just derivative, just all of it derivative. So boring that in the middle of the second book, the first book tried my patience quite a bit. It's not a single fantasy cliche that it doesn't just roll out as if it just invented them. But in the middle of the second book, I was asking myself out loud, why is this way? It's so noticeable that there has to be a reason. And I have some theories as to the reason for why everyone is singing the praises of this. I don't think too far a stretch to say that identity politics plays a part in it. Much as I hate to say that, but I know the series has fans. I just want to tell them to get out more. So read even one more fantasy series and maybe see. But anyway, Bryce Fuqua says, in an earlier Q&A, you asked if I enjoyed reading Joseph McElroy's gigantic novel, Women and Men. Now that I'm finished, I can say it's a lot like eating liver. It's good for you, but not very fun. My question is there another McElroy novel you would recommend? No. I recommend that you read Women and Men if you're interested in massive works of genius, but it is not enjoyable. And neither is anything else. Let's see here. Bas Van Dyke, or Van Dietz. Hey, Steve, you have mentioned before that you consider biography to be your favorite genre. May I ask why? When it's done well, it has everything that you would want. It has the whole story, intensely interesting personalities, all of the relevant history. History is made by people. No matter what you hear to the contrary, especially if you're in a bad history class at school, history is made by people, not by impersonal forces. It's made by people. And biographies are full of people. If they're done right, they're full of people. That is so much better, usually, than reading a work of history on the same relative period where the writer of the book on history thinks that impersonal forces are interesting to read about. They aren't. They aren't interesting to read about. No one can make them interesting to read about. Biographies, if they're done well, are not only full of bristling personalities, but full of eloquence. I just love them. They are the best possible way to read history. Let's see here. How are we doing for time? Let's do Leo Picard. Hello, Steve. Which work of literature do you think was or is incredibly popular at the level of Stephen King or Karl Ove Knausgaard, but actually good? This one's easy nowadays, and that is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. It won every award there was to win. It had plaudits aplenty. It's a million copies, a movie and a TV series. All critics in unanimous agreement. For God's sake, if Christopher Hitchens and I can agree on the same book, that's pretty rare. And it's worth it. I know I just recently last year reread it very slowly at a pace where I would have noticed every single scar, every single pimple, every single dot of any kind, and I was even more impressed by its genius. Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. If a strange dog goes to you and asks you to pet her and play with her, we're doing the pronoun swap even with dogs. Can't be a him or you're sexist. Even with another species. Out of nowhere, and does it every time you're around her neighborhood. Is it lack of love from her owners, or the dog just likes you? It could be that the dog is friendly. Some of them are. They aren't androids. They're different. They have different personalities. Some dogs are just friendly. My little dog, for instance, I don't think there's anyone watching these videos who would think that she suffers from a lack of attention or love on my part. She's unbelievably extroverted when we're out and about. Runs right up to people, likes nothing more than to greet people. I wouldn't go blaming the owners. It could just be that it's an outgoing dog. But anyway, we're going to wrap this up. This is part 1. We'll move on to part 2.